Good morning. It's 9 a.m. on this All Fool's Day, April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2021. But no joke here, we've got an incredible organization that lifts up New Mexico and does a phenomenal job with deep impact. And we are pleased to host Ms. Michelle Aldana. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You betcha. All Face Children's Advocacy Centers in the house during the Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Children's, let's see here. What is the official? It's not Children's Protection Month.
Child Abuse Awareness.
Child Abuse Awareness Month. Thank you, Michelle. See, that's why we have guests, because I'm no expert. I'm just shining a light on good work here in the land of enchantment, the Tierra del Encanto, the 47 star on that beautiful flag of the United States of America on this April 1st, 2021. Bienvenidos a todos. There you go. Good morning, New Mexico. Thank you, Aleli, for my cafecito here, right here in my Cafecito con Colón mug. Good morning, Michelle Aldana. Good to see you this morning.
Nice to see you.
I'm so glad you're able to join us. I am, as we get ready to have the Triduum, here, Good Friday tomorrow, on this Holy Thursday, I decided to wear my Easter tie again. Snoopy, kind of lighthearted there. I think it's the second time I've worn it now in spring. But I'm loving it and hope you like it too. But I'm also just thrilled to be able to really shine a spotlight during this time of year, particularly during this April as we started off. And we are really lifting up this very, very important nonprofit organization, or what we like to call social profit organization here in Albuquerque, the All Face Children's Advocacy Center. Michelle, good morning. I know you've been an extrovert therapist for me in the past. You've been a Cafecito colleague. You've stopped by and watched a couple episodes. I know we've had some of your friends and colleagues on, but it's great to have you here personally today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Tell us about what April means to you. We'll start out with that, and then if you don't mind, I'll get to some links of the day, but I'd love to just kind of frame the conversation on the importance of the work you do, and particularly as we increase awareness in our community about some of the deep need. I think you can maybe get us started.
Yes, it's important. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it is a national campaign, and All Face is also doing a campaign, Stand Up for Children. And so it's important for us to recognize the impact that child abuse has within our communities and across our nation. And that's why this month is so important to me.
I appreciate that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, friends and Cafecito colleagues, you should check out, and we'll put the landing page up for it again. But I did post yesterday the banner that shows how you can get registered for this upcoming event that, again, we are doing everything we can for child abuse prevention here in our land of enchantment. It's an important issue, and I'm thrilled that Michelle is with us. And I'm grateful for the work of All Face that's been going on for such a long time. They are really an organization that does a phenomenal job leveraging their resources for the collective benefit of our community. So we're grateful for that. So Michelle, I'm gonna go over real quick and put some links up, the links of the day, and then I'll come right back to you. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hang tight. I'll be right back. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, my friends, my Cafecito crew, good morning to everybody. Good morning, Catherine. Good morning to Selena Sierra and Dr. Lang. Good morning. Great to see Dr. Lawrence Roybal and Donna. Oh, you never miss. And good morning, Don Ernesto Martinez. Ernesto, I think your team is taking care of my hito today up there in Santa Fe. Dr. Melina Martinez, the best in the business there in Condado de Santa Fe, Ciudad Santa Fe. Get over there and she will take great care of your oral hygiene, and just a phenomenal dentist with a great crew. But Don Ernesto, it's time for us to get together and break bread, you and me, buddy. So let's make that happen. Maybe you can send me a text today. We'll get that on the calendar. Clovis Baca, thank you for lifting up All Face and the work they do. In fact, let me lead. There couldn't be a more important link today during this Child Abuse Prevention Month, there can't be a more important link than the one I'm going to put up right now, which is the Children's Advocacy Center's landing page. All Face Children's Advocacy Center. It's where they heal kids and families in crisis. They are trusted advocates for children and families affected by trauma. Wait till you learn more about them. They're kind of a below the radar in some ways organization. It's always a little shocking to me how many people are not familiar with the important work that goes on at All Face. Good morning, Elizabeth. Great to see you this morning. And let me give you a few links. It's now 9:06, so I'm doing pretty good for it on time because I limited my links this morning. I've been running long on links, so I'm adjusting. And I'm all dressed up today in this tie, my suit. I'm very excited to be speaking this morning to the New Mexico School Business Officials Conference about the work of the Office of the State Auditor. That's going to happen right after Cafecito. So I'm going to finish right on time today, folks. So Selena is going to give me the high sign. She always signs off right like at 9:59. She's like my marker when I know I'm getting ready to go overtime. Selena is so conscientious of the clock, and I just love her for that. So here's where I'm going to start. Because of them, we can. I've talked a lot about the trial of former Officer Chauvin and the tragedy, the murder of George Floyd, the pain that we're experiencing collectively. And I can't imagine the pain for people who look to the murder of George Floyd and this set of circumstances and see a reflection of themselves and their families, because it's traumatic for me. I can't imagine the trauma associated for those who are Blacks, who are African American, who are people of color. I can't imagine the trauma. But the testimony yesterday continues to be just gut wrenching. And I lift up that community, and we amplify the message of having to just really stand up against violence and hate everywhere, regardless who is the perpetrator, whether it's an African American on the streets of New York who is perpetrating hate against an Asian woman. That was also extremely painful to watch that Filipina be beat, where people stood and did nothing. And in fact, there are reports that doors were closed. I just, stop Asian hate, stop hate, stop hate, stop hate, period. Hard stop. Anyway, let me just give you a few of my links. Because of them, we can. I love this website. It's a fantastic website, lifting up BOTWC first. This one here, Damian Williams, he is set to make history as the first Black U.S. attorney in Manhattan. Hard to believe, but it is true. Thank you, Dr. Lang, for your comment there. I appreciate that very much. Ms. Garcia, lifting up All Face and Michelle. Good morning, Cristina Chavarria de Santa Fe. Gracias por venir otra vez, todavía. Good morning, Rose. Thank you for lifting up All Face. Michelle, I can't even get through these links because everybody's blowing up the good work of All Face Children's Advocacy Center. So thank you for that. Check out that story. Let me it's 9:09. Let me go local here, and then we'll wrap up with local and go straight to Michelle. Albuquerque Journal. The special session has adjourned, which means those of us that are on the ballot and coming up and doing fundraising, it means something significant for us. As a statewide elected official, I'm not permitted to raise money during the legislative session. And so somebody called me yesterday and said, hey, Brian, I wanted to go to your Act Blue link and make a contribution for your continued service. And I couldn't. It says your website is down. And frankly, I literally forgot as well. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I called Act Blue. And in fact, of course, during the special session, I'm not permitted to raise money and accept contributions. So I'm pleased to say, if you want to make a contribution to New Mexicans for Cologne, you can actually do that again, because the special session adjourned last night. They did a great job. They passed LIDA expansion. They passed the historic legislation, as it says here, a landmark Senate vote. New Mexico set to legalize cannabis. It also passed expungement. Big deal. Lots of social justice, lots of great progress in New Mexico's laws as it relates to this issue. So check that out. Two big pieces of news in New Mexico. We now have the Democratic nominee who you met 1 week. Today is Thursday. So about 9 days ago, our Cafecito colleagues spent an hour with our Democratic nominee for this special election that will happen on June 1st. Voting starts on May 5th, May 4th, first week in May. You'll be able to early vote, absentee, in person. And then June 1st is the special election to fill the vacancy created by our now United States Secretary of Interior, trailblazer Deb Haaland, former Congresswoman. It turns out that Melanie Stansbury, in a very close election amongst the State Central Committee members, is the nominee for United States Congress, 1st Congressional District. She bested Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez. Both of them ran a phenomenal campaign. It came down to about 3 or 4 votes on the swing, meaning I think it was a 7-vote margin. So if you put those on the swing, it's about a 3-vote margin. You're talking about less than 1%, 1.5%. But 2 tremendous New Mexico civil servants, not civil servants, but public servants. Both of them serving, one in the House, one in the Senate. And again, we seek to maintain diversity in gender in that district that has been underrepresented by women in our history here in the state of New Mexico. But we now have Melanie Stansbury, the Honorable, as our nominee. So be prepared to vote. Here is the story. Good morning, Emma Dahl. Good to see you. Dr. Dahl, good to see you. I've got your 2 Cafecito con Colon mugs waiting. Text me when you're on the way. We'll put them on the gratitude bench outside, and you can have a no contact pickup. And Aleli is looking to me for something. Good morning, sweetheart. Hold on one quick second. I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Slight emergency here at Casa Colon that was truly an emergency worth interrupting me for, but we will handle that. Thank you, Aleli. All right, so there's your story on Melanie Stansbury. And then the other big news, I think I posted on all my social media yesterday. New Mexico residents 16 and over, starting on Monday, we're talking like today's Thursday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, about 96 hours from now, all New Mexico residents 16 and over will be eligible for the vaccine. And that is awesome. So make sure you get registered for the vaccine. Good morning, Jessica Pearl Campbell. Good to see you this morning. There is the story from the Albuquerque Journal. So we are right on time. It's 9:14. I'm actually 1 minute early, and I'm going to take up this 1 minute by saying, don't forget, I'll be watching tonight. Hopefully the rest of the day goes well. I'm getting my first vaccination today, or turning my first shot in the arm into my vaccination today, this afternoon, and hopefully I will be fine. And this evening I'll be watching the showing for the Santa Fe Jewish Film Festival, the screening of Numbered. It is sure to be powerful. It starts today at 4 o'clock, runs all the way through April 7th. So sign up for your tickets and your access to this powerful, powerful documentary. All right, and as we get ready to we continue to observe Passover, Chag Sameach to my sisters and brothers. Now we are in the Triduum for our Roman Catholics and for Christians around the world as we get ready to celebrate Easter weekend on this Holy Thursday. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 9:15, so I'm back to being right on schedule and not running ahead of schedule. So good morning, Matthew Barclay. Good to see you, brother. Let me introduce our guest of honor. Michelle, you still doing okay over there?
I am.
All right. Well, welcome to Cafecito con Colon. Let me just start out by introducing you to our guests, our Cafecito colleagues, our Cafecito crew, our extrovert therapist. Michelle is the Director of Forensic Service for All Faiths Children's Advocacy Center and Children's Safe House. Michelle has worked at All Faiths Children's Advocacy since, get a load of this, folks. Are you ready? We're celebrating a quarter century together between All Faiths and Michelle. She's been there since 1996, the year I got married, which means that we're both in our silver anniversary this year. And she is the Director of Forensic Services there at Children's Safe House for the last dozen years. She believes that in order to have healthier communities, we all need to support children and families affected by trauma. Michelle has completed well over 5,000 forensic interviews and understands the critical role of forensic interviews in child abuse investigations. She oversees the multidisciplinary process and teams in Bernalillo County and Sandoval counties, and she provides statewide training on issues related to child development, child abuse, investigations of child abuse, and the process, really important, the process for disclosure of abuse. Michelle got her master's degree in counseling from New Mexico Highlands and a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology from the University of New Mexico. So she's been to two of our great institutions of higher learning. And today it's my privilege and honor to host her on Cafecito con Colon. She's a legend in the landscape of children's advocacy. Michelle Aldana, bienvenidos.
Gracias.
Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about this journey? How is it, when I think about 25 years, it's easy for me because it's when I married my wife. And so I got a good sense of what that 25-year window looks like. But for you, go back 25 years ago, go back to that education. What gave you this passion for really embracing children who have been subjected to trauma? And how do we take them from where they are to a safer, more peaceful, and better place?
Wow, you start off with the easy question, huh? I always knew that children were a passion of mine, their safety, caring for the children of our community. And I also had an interest in the legal system. And so this kind of brought the two together.
That's really spectacular. And it's rare that one gets to find their passion point. Particularly even our age, when we entered into the profession that was going to be our career, we see so many people that have to shift around and move around, and you landed exactly where you were meant to be, doing this important work. And maybe you can help educate us a little bit about what that work looks like. A lot of people, when you say forensic exams and forensic work, they don't really have a sense of what that is, but yet you're such an incredible expert and you've been doing it for so long. Maybe give us a sense of what that work looks like. And then we'll move over to kind of the work of All Faiths generally, and maybe you can help us understand what that work looks like generally. Okay.
Well, I think when we say forensics, people think that that's CSI, excuse me, and it's not. It's forensic linguistics, basically. So what we're doing is providing interviews for children, teens, and adults with developmental delays who have alleged or disclosed abuse, either sexual or physical, or who have been witness to a violent crime. And so we are trained as forensic interviewers to provide basically it looks like a conversation, but it's a child statement in regards to the abuse that they've endured. And we do it in a child-friendly way, but also a legally defensible manner.
Nice. And so that means you have to deal with a lot of folks like me, attorneys. Having practiced 20 years, I can tell you that I've dealt with a lot of forensic and clinical psychologists and forensics in general. And we're not always the easiest to deal with, but you have persevered. You've become a trusted voice, just like the Children's Advocacy Center is a trusted space and place for our families there at All Faiths. Tell us a little bit about, the approach of All Faiths Children's Advocacy Center as it heals children and families in crisis.
Well, All Faiths has been in the community for 64 years. So we've been around a long time. We've changed over time to meet the needs for the children and families that we serve. We have 4 overarching programs. We have our Family Wellness Program, Adoptions Program, our Training Institute, and then the Forensic Program, or commonly known as the Children's Safe House.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I know that's your area of core competency, and we talk about all faith children's advocacy, and I think of them in a global sense, an overall mission of providing that safe space and that protective model for our children and those families who've been subjected to trauma. But tell us more specifically about that safe house, because I think that's kind of a piece that's kind of quiet, but it's your deep dive. And so maybe you can help us better understand that.
Okay. Well, we used to be in a small house off of Trellis, where our receiving home was for many, many years. And so we were coined the Safe House. And now we're in a much larger space to meet the demand. But it's not a small house anymore. But the name just stuck. What we do is, like I said, gather a statement from a child who is disclosing abuse. We work with many partners in the community: APD, BCSO, CYFD, the DA's office, medical providers, school educators, to bring children in when there's an open criminal investigation happening. And so we're specially trained in this. At the time that we conduct the forensic interview of the child, which is recorded, the non-offending family member or caregiver is also supported through our family advocates, so that we can provide information and referrals so that they can move on to hope and healing.
Hope and healing. That's a beautiful concept. I can't help but thinking about the kind of the continuity of services that you provide there at All Face, and then the work of the Children's Grief Center. That I've been a longstanding advocate for, just like All Face. How when we're in this pandemic, we're at what week 54, week 55 now of this pandemic. How has that affected the services that the Safe House actually provides to children and families? I assume that, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that even you, as an incredible expert, more than 2 decades of experience, conducting a forensic interview via Zoom or under the circumstances and stress of the pandemic, it complicates matters, doesn't it?
It does. And there are a few issues that are concerning. Of course, with children not being in school, it's difficult. We don't have eyes on our kids. And so that's been very challenging. We still are in the office. Staff of the Safe House are still in the office conducting interviews face-to-face. The rest of our staff under other programs are working remotely from home and pivoted quite quickly and efficiently to meet the needs that way for mental health services, behavioral health services. But for us, we still have forensic interviewers that are still in the office, along with our intake department, to help schedule things and keep things moving through our program.
That's great. So you really haven't had an interruption of services. You all pivoted. We say, how do you spell coronavirus? It's PIVOT. And you all pivoted there at the Safe House.
Yes, most definitely. It was quick, as we all know, and we had to make some pretty definite decisions about how we were going to continue our services. So we've made accommodations. We're seeing one family at a time. We want to keep everybody healthy and safe, but we also want to provide the services that are so needed, especially with children, when you need to be able to discuss what they're disclosing as soon as the point of disclosure as possible.
Perfect. And so as soon as the point of disclosures, you bring them in. I think now, as we start off April, we just came off of Women's History Month. We really spotlighted some superstars in history, some of the struggles, the suffragettes, the fight for equal voice, equal space, equal place. And you're just another great example of someone who brings that touch and that perspective to such important work. And I wonder now, as we move into April, and we talked yesterday to the Rape Crisis Center of Central New Mexico, as we started thinking about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and April is also National Child Abuse Awareness Month. So how does the Advocacy Center, you all have been preparing, so how do you do that advocacy in terms of bringing awareness to child abuse in our community, and how do we prevent that, and how do we disclose that, which is kind of where I was going with what you said at the last. making sure that we have as close in time getting children from where they are, the disclosure point, to getting them to you and to the Children's Advocacy Center.
Well, I think it's important for people to realize when a child tells you, it's important to listen and to take that seriously. I know it's very difficult to believe that somebody maybe that you love, that you know, could do something like this, but it happens, and it's important that children are safe. So please call either your local law enforcement or call the CYFD hotline to report that abuse. The thing that we don't need is for kids to be asked questions extensively. That's what our job is. And so just make that report. You can do that anonymously, although it's very helpful if you don't, if you provide your name and information so that we can, not we, but as a system, CYFD or law enforcement can get back to you in order to proceed with that investigation, if that's what's deemed appropriate.
That's perfect. I appreciate that. May I, Michelle, there's on your landing page for, I say yours, but I mean your core competency,
Yes.
on the Children's Safe House subpage for the All Faiths Children's Advocacy Center. There's a powerful, just 1 minute clip about helping victims become survivors. Would you be all right if I shared that with our folks today?
Of course.
Okay, great. Let me just take a minute to do that. Although I have so many windows open here, I'm not sure I can find it. Here we go. Let me do that real quick, Michelle, because it's again powerful. We watched another silent clip yesterday with words, and there's just something particularly powerful about the background here and the message. So stand by. I feel like what you said was so important, and I can't imagine anything else to follow your comment about believing our children that would be more powerful than that 60 seconds. It takes such an incredible amount of courage to report abuse when you've been abused. So much more so for children. And we talked a lot yesterday about believing, those who have been raped when they come forward. And I don't think any of us thought about or default to thinking about children who have been injured in that way. But how much more of a challenge is it for them to come forward? And as you said so eloquently, Michelle, so often the default is easy to believe. I can't believe that would happen, because it's a loved one or somebody we've known for our entire lives. In fact, I think you would agree that most of the time these incidents are perpetrated by someone we know, which makes it so hard to believe our children. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How do we embrace the tools necessary so that we're prepared when that little child comes up and whispers in our ear, as you saw in that video? How do we respond appropriately? What should we always be thinking about? Is that a fair question?
Yeah. There's so many things to think about. I think one important thing that I've realized over the years is that good people can do bad things. So somebody can be really great to you. You can have a great relationship. You can trust them, and they can still do bad things to children. And so although it's hard to believe, and we don't want to believe that those things exist in the world, We have to protect our children. They cannot protect themselves. We may try to educate them about body safety, but it is not their responsibility to protect themselves. If a child tells you, it's important to take that seriously. It's important to not say things like, "Are you sure?" or "Was it a dream?" We hear so many things that people say just because it's difficult to hear. We need to believe our kids and report it and let the people that are equipped to do those investigations do their investigations.
Thank you. I wonder, there's some folks that are asking about collaborations that All Faiths may enter into. I think there's one that somebody specifically asked about BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse, and maybe it's a good segue for you to talk a little bit about the collaborative approach, because again, I opened with saying that All Faiths does such a great job of leveraging its resources to have deep impact. Can you speak to some of the collaborative approaches you take?
Yes. So child abuse is, excuse me, handled through a multidisciplinary team. So those partners that I mentioned earlier, we have 11 children advocacy centers across the state of New Mexico, and all of them work in partnership with those partner agencies. So it's not just us making decisions about a child abuse investigation. It's us in conjunction with our law enforcement partners, our child protective partners, again, medical, and the DA's office. And we work closely with them on a daily basis.
Perfect. And are there engagement points? We talked a lot yesterday about how folks can volunteer, get involved, and support the work of a great nonprofit that we featured yesterday in the Rape Crisis Center of Central New Mexico, RCCCNM. What about with All Faiths? I know that you do a lot of community education. And let me just underscore, you said that essentially there are 11 safe houses or points of contact for the work that you do all over the state of New Mexico. I think people think when they do know about All Faiths, Michelle, I think a lot of us think about Albuquerque, the metro area,
Right.
but your reach is so much broader than that.
Right. There are 11 advocacy centers across the state. So it's important to know that. If you need information on an advocacy center near you, I can provide that. You know, there's so many ways that you can get involved, but I think one of the most important things that we can all do is just be aware, you know, understand some signs, ask kids in your lives, how are you? And really listen, because how many times do we see one another or our children and we say, how was your day? And it was fine. And that was it. Really take the time to listen and be with your children, be with one another, check in on each other, so that we can know how the people that we love are doing.
I love that. I appreciate that so much. And I think
It's
one of the things that you do really well at All Faiths is you give several points of entry and abilities for individuals to stand with you in the work you do. And I just want to share the screen because I think it's one of the best landing pages for engagement. This here is your donate page or your ways to give. And you can donate a vehicle, you can donate money, and then something here individuals may not think about intuitively is this gift card program you have, where gift cards and e-cards can be sent directly to the All Faiths Children Advocacy Center for their Healing Kids and Families in Crisis, and they help use those gift cards to help the families purchase food and necessities and items of that nature. And then going on, there's way to support All Faiths by setting up fundraisers. You can do planned gifts, bond stocks, IRA rollovers, and things of that nature. So I just want to encourage folks to think about that. And as always the case, I'm happy to step up. We've got a few Cafecito con Colón mugs available. I know the dolls are coming to get theirs tomorrow for donating yesterday to the Rape Crisis Center of Central New Mexico. And anybody who steps up to support All Faiths will certainly also just have to let me know, and we'll get you a fantastic Cafecito con Colón coffee mug. So you bet. Tell us a little bit more about the event that you have coming up with All Faiths Children's Advocacy Center to shine the spotlight on National Child Abuse Awareness Month. How are you honoring that and advancing the goals of that awareness month?
So we're just hoping to bring awareness. We have some social media is one, of course, that we're trying to get that awareness out, but also we have a webinar on April 6th. It's free to the public, and also one on April 20th. The April 6th webinar is understanding the impact of the forensic interview in criminal investigations and the importance of that. And then the April 20th webinar is how to talk to children who have experienced trauma.
Fantastic. So we'll put a link to that. The other thing that's coming up that I'm very excited about, it's kind of been, it's grown to be a legendary event in a very short period of time, but the Crab Bash, fantastically creative, awesome event. But you all are moving that to a virtual platform this summer. And so I'm going to put the link to that in there. Have you got some Crab Bash memories that you want to share while I post that link?
Oh gosh, there's so many. So many over the years. You know, we used to have the Crab Bash at our Trellis location where our receiving home was, and it was felt small and intimate, although it was always a very large event. It was on the grounds there, so it was very personal and important to the people that had worked there for many years. And then we moved it to the country club downtown, and so it was a little bit different, a little bit bigger, but both locations were wonderful. It's just good to come together with our community supporters, put faces to names, and just talk about the good work that we do every day. I think I lost your sound.
We just fixed that. How does that sound?
That's better.
Awesome. Thank you for that gentle reminder. Let me put in here, I wanted to put in the link so folks can sign up for the great webinar you were just talking about. So not only should you sign up, thank you, Dr. Lang, for telling me I lost sound. You are correct. And Lala, thank you for the heads up. Well, I'll tell you what, if we don't think people are paying attention, just go mute for a second and let your lips move, and everybody puts in the comments, hey, Colon, we can't hear you. So I know you're paying attention. Thank you for that. There's the link to sign up for the webinar that's coming up. There's the link to sign up for the Crab Bash. And I hope you'll do both. I really do. I know that I'm looking forward to the Crab Bash. I'll be buying tickets. I think I've been invited to participate in a small way, and I look forward to doing that and supporting the work of All Face. It is one of my favorite advocacy organizations in Albuquerque. Tell us a little bit more, Michelle, about some of the things that maybe can you provide. You know, you've got 25 years of experience, and I think that sometimes we speak about the work that we do in a way that is, for lack of a better word, Michelle, maybe sterile, right? And you've seen some of the most horrendous situations. And I wonder if in a generic way, you can still help communicate to our friends who are watching today, kind of the gravity of some of the circumstances that you've had to assist families in, taking them to that healing place from going to be, you know, victims to survivors to people who grow up. And I say people, but I really mean children, because that's the core of your work. Taking those children to being thriving members of their community, even though they've suffered such deep trauma. Can you give us a little bit of that texture? Because I think people maybe not realize, like I said, the gravity of the work you do every day and what you see.
Yeah, it's challenging work, but it's fulfilling. And I personally feel like if a child can talk to me, disclose to me about the most horrific thing that's probably happened in their life, then it's my honor. And so I try to be strong in those moments where there's just disbelief about what's happening in a child's life. At our highest point, we were interviewing about 1,700 kids a year. And so the things that you see on the news, of course, are horrific. Those are the cases that we're dealing with, but also there's so many more that never hit the news, never make the news. And so it's important as partners, as protectors of children, that we pay attention to our kids, because it's not just the ones that we see highlighted on the news. There's 99% more. So it's hard work, but very important work.
What are some of the traumatic experiences that you find coming into the front door of the safe house?
Well, of course, physical and sexual abuse. A majority of the cases that we do are sexual abuse cases. So kids that are disclosing sexual abuse. And yes, those are by people that they know. It is in my 25 years, I've done maybe a handful of stranger cases. So stranger danger isn't really the answer here. It's one of the answers, but not the only one. Um, but of course, the child deaths that we see, because we interview children in regards to what they may have witnessed, those are very difficult. Nobody wants to be in that position. No family wants to be in that position. But we interview the children who may have witnessed something like that. And so those are very, very difficult cases to handle.
You used an expression earlier, Michelle, that I think I've heard it, but I certainly wasn't as familiar with it. We talk about stranger danger, but did you talk a little bit about body awareness, or what term
Just
did you
body
use?
safety.
Body safety. Thank you. Body safety. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I do think, look, my son's 23 now, so I'm kind of on the other side of those really difficult conversations,
Mhm.
right? He's a grown man, so it's different. And I remember being challenged when he was a young boy. And like, here's a perfect example, Michelle, of how new parents, I mean, I only had one child that we lost, we tried to have more. We only have Raphael. But I remember going to dinner with a friend of mine who was more like a brother, and our boys are about the same age. His boy's actually probably 8 months older than mine. And I remember like it was yesterday. We were both sitting down to dinner, um, and Raphael needed to go to the bathroom, so he went to the bathroom and he came back. And then our friend's son also needed to go to the restroom, and he actually accompanied him to the restroom. Now these boys were probably 5 or 6, because I feel like they were already in kindergarten or right about that age,
Mhm.
6 or 7, maybe even first or second grade. And I remember he came back, and I spoke to him afterwards. I said, your son is, 6 or 7 years old. Can he go to the bathroom alone? I mean, I didn't, it wasn't really in a derogatory, but I guess I was kind of joking around about it. I feel like, but what I
Mhm.
remember, like it was yesterday, his response, he's like, you can't be too safe. You don't know who's in that public restroom waiting for your son to walk in alone. And my hair still stands up, because I'm telling you, he stopped me cold in my tracks when he said that.
Yeah. One of the worst cases that I dealt with was one just like that. So it's important. And as a parent, I have 3 children. My son is 22, my oldest, and he was probably taller than me and at 8 or 9, and I would take him into the bathroom with me. So there, it's true. You can never be too safe. And it's our job to protect our kids. And I would tell them that, my children, like if they wanted to spend the night at somebody's house, or they wanted to go over and play with somebody, and I didn't know them and I didn't know their parents, I would tell them, I'm sorry, but you're the most important thing to me, and it's my job to protect you. So
And I feel like you took me there, because I was thinking about, it's easy. Like I remember talking to my son, there's no way he's going to do a sleepover without me having 10 phone numbers of who was going to be there, and know the parents and meet the parents and all that. But it's some of that small stuff. And I remember talking to my son about stranger danger,
mhm.
that you brought up, or we were talking about the difference between stranger danger and body safety. And so these are some of the, at least to me, they're new. And I wonder, you talking about those techniques really provides a service that's so important, because it's not just about children's advocacy post-trauma, but it's also about April being Child Abuse Awareness Month, but it's prevention.
Mhm.
Prevention is so powerful, and you can provide so many of those education points. So if there are a couple of other things that maybe you would want our families to hear, um, as we think about how do we prevent child abuse. I mean, we know now that we've got the All Face Children's Advocacy Center to engage when we've encountered a situation where we hear and then we believe immediately. Hear and then believe immediately, and then engage All Face. But what would you like us to think about when it comes to prevention?
Well, a couple of things. I think it's really important to teach our children the correct names for their body parts. I always say a nose is a nose. Why would we call any other part differently? Because then it just leads to the feeling that there's something secret about it. And of course, we're going to tell our kids like those parts are private, and that's okay. But we need to call them what they are, because if there, anything ever did happen, then children are able to use the correct terminology to express what's happened to them. And I know that good touch, bad touch is a common thing that we use to educate kids as well. And I just want to, I guess, highlight something. Bodies are meant to feel good. And so when we say good touch, bad touch, then it can be difficult for kids who are confused about what that touch was. So we may say something like confusing touch or touch that makes you feel worried. And that kind of leaves that a little bit more open for kids to think about versus just a very definitive and concrete good touch, bad touch.
I never would have contemplated that. Thank you for saying that. I don't want to cut you off if you have some other ideas, but these are powerful things. I mean, first of all, I didn't really follow either one of those two tips you just gave.
I think that's common for parents, myself as well. You know, had I not done this work for so long, I wouldn't have understood the importance of kind of taking it one step further. I think one last tip I just want to add, we tell our kids, it's important to tell me if something happened. And I would encourage people, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents to take it one step further and say, you won't be in trouble for that. If something happens to you and you tell me, I won't be mad at you, because kids feel that they're always in trouble. That's just the nature of childhood. And so it's important for kids to feel safe enough to tell us and feel like they're not going to be in trouble for that.
No doubt. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us as long as you were able to today. Melinda, let me actually state to you this from Melinda and then have you respond, because it's really an important point, I think. Sadly, Melinda Collins states, sadly, as a parent of 4 boys and 1 girl, I remember people telling us how blessed we were because we only had 1 child to worry about, as boys take care of themselves and girls need more protection. But Melinda says it's equal, and sometimes boys are abused even more. Have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that our society, you know, our culture, social media, the media in general, just paints this picture of boys are strong, boys will be fine. And that what we know from statistics is that, you know, it's 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys. And I would beg to differ, because I believe the number is probably far higher, larger than that. I think that boys are just not encouraged to talk in the same way, to disclose about those types of issues, because they'll be viewed differently. And so we just need to encourage our children to talk, and we need to set the example by talking with them and being present.
Thank you for that. And I another comment really kind of folds into that as to why, you know, you have those stats, but you don't necessarily believe those are necessarily an appropriate representation of real life. And part of that is because of underreporting from those who were supposed to be stronger, or those who have more pressure for conformity or a fear to disclose. As a young boy, I can assure you that pressure is real. I remember when I was a young boy. So that pressure is real. And I guess what I would ask you about, because of your work so specifically, somebody talked about the secondary trauma of reporting, and reporting in itself being traumatic, and how's the best way we can support particularly our children in that set of circumstances, other than engaging immediately with all face, because frankly that's what I would do because I'm more informed now. But do you have some thoughts about that, and how do we is it possible even to limit that secondary trauma?
Well, I think the nature of all of this is traumatic. It's difficult if you're in a situation where you're concerned about a child and you need to make a report. But we need to be big people and do that, because kids can't do that on their own. And if a child discloses to you, then it's important to follow through with that. That doesn't mean that somebody's immediately going to jail or prison, but but at least there'll be some investigation, there will be some safeguards put into place, and then we can intervene at some level to support kids.
Perfect. Perfect. I think we'll give you the last word, but one thing I want to just really kind of underscore as we enter this this month, which is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, which of course is a time dedicated to bringing awareness to child abuse prevention through education and community awareness activities. And as a result of that, you are launching this Stand Up for Children campaign. Do you have anything specific you want to say about that? And then I'm going to repost the webinar information, because I know that at least on Tuesday, the 20th, which is, it's two webinars, one on the 6th, which is the critical role of forensic interviews, where you are going to be talking about the importance of forensic interviews in family advocacy and child abuse investigations. But then you're also going to speak on the 20th about the importance of how we talk to children who've experienced trauma. And I kind of was leading in with that last question to that second webinar you're going to put on. And I'll put all that up again. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the campaign really speaks for itself, right? Stand up for children, and that's what we need to all be doing.
Absolutely. Stand up for children. And here is, if you want to not just register straight away, here's Jeanette's email address and phone number to get more information about the campaign and about registering for the webinars. Again, it's going to be on April 6th and April 20th, 11:45 to 1. Are both of them from 11:45 to 1?
Yes, both of them.
Okay, great. So here's the deal, folks. You don't even have to miss work. Like, this is a lunchtime thing. Grab a brown bag and sign up for these webinars. They're going to be powerful. The first one, the critical role of forensic interviews, on Tuesday, April 6th, 11:45. Thank you, Michelle, for that one. And then on April 20th, how to talk to children impacted by trauma. And I think Michelle would probably agree that it's better to hear this seminar or webinar before you have to deal with a child who's been impacted by trauma. So let's get those tools in place so that we can be well prepared to deal with and support our children. So Michelle, with that, I think what I'd like to do is, I posted the link again for that registration. I'm going to post the link again to AllFace. I hope you'll think about supporting their important work. But I want to give you the final word and opportunity to share with us. I will not be back on tomorrow, Good Friday. I'll be on my pilgrimage, not to Tomé. Most people know that I do a pilgrimage all the way from the South Valley to Tomé, about 20 miles every year on Good Friday. I won't be doing that this year, but I will be doing it from Vista del Norte Park, which is right at the corner of Osuna and Vista del Norte. Some colleagues of mine, some brothers and some friends of mine will be joining me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we will head up to Prince of Peace, and where we'll have the Stations of the Cross there that are represented by one of my favorite Santeras. Arlene did the Stations of the Cross for Prince of Peace, and so that's how we will be doing our Good Friday morning. So I give you that time during this Triduum to reflect and be enriched, and I'll ask for your grace and not hosting you tomorrow morning. But with that, let me turn it back over to this incredible, Michelle, you just inspire me. I mean, a quarter century of dedication to our children. AllFace Children's Advocacy Center and Safe House. It is truly a place where there is a healing and hope that is renewed for children who have experienced trauma, as well as their families. I'm grateful for you in ways that I can't even express. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your leadership. Take it away. I'll give you the last word, Michelle.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. This, of course, has been something that's near and dear to my heart. It's an important passion, and kids are, it sounds cliche, but our future, right? We need to interrupt the cycle of abuse. We need to support children. And if you're ever in the position where a child discloses to you, then reach out to your local law enforcement, the CYFD hotline, or reach out to us, and we can direct you to the right place, to the right person, in order to assist either you or that child or that family member to get the support that they need.
I love that. I love that. Speaking of children and lifting them up, guess what else this is? Thank you, Melinda, for this. April is also Military Child Month. So we lift up those children of the military. Here in New Mexico, we've got a long history of service. We have our labs, we have our Air Force Base, we have, Holloman down south. over there in the southern part of the state. We got Kirtland right here, where I'm honored to be an honorary commander and a graduate of the Army War College. And so for me, I'm honored to be able to say that this is also the month of the military child. So I'm gonna put the link for that right here in the chat as we wrap up this episode of Cafecito con Colon, where we shine a bright spotlight on the impactful, longstanding, fantastic work. How many years? Is it 60 years or something like that? Remind me.
64.
64 years. That's unbelievable. 64 years. And to think what's even more unbelievable, Michelle's been there for almost half those years, quarter century. So 40% of its life, Michelle has been there advocating for children, using her skills to make sure that she helps children who've been through traumatic experience go from victim to victor. And we're grateful for her work. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, All Faith Children's Advocacy Center. You're always welcome on Cafecito con Colon, and you know I'm always in your corner.
Thank you.
Give my regards to the team. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You bet. Have a wonderful, wonderful Easter weekend, folks. I'll look forward to seeing you again here soon on Cafecito con Colon. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you were enriched by hearing about Michelle's incredible work and the longstanding support provided at All Faith Children's Advocacy Center and the Safe House. 11 of those all over the state of New Mexico. It's a statewide footprint, statewide impact. Make sure you support them today. If you do, I got a Cafecito con Colon mug waiting for you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.